It's the second year in a row we did it. It was even better than last year. And I got to say, for the crude setup that we had, with the audio and everything, just one microphone, I thought I would be able to get a line out of a mixer, but there was no mixer. I said, oh, here we go. This might be a wolfy mess. It was actually really nice. It's still on, it's on quitefrankly.tv. It's on Pilled. So right there in the replays on Pilled. And it was actually so clear, and there wasn't a lot of competition between all the dialogue and the Foley work and the music and all that stuff. And the dialogue actually came in so clear that all of Pilled's new AI-powered subtitles and stuff was able to generate like 92% accurate subtitles. I was really impressed with everything. And next year I'll be a part of it a little bit more on the sound end of things. And Aurora got to see it, and it was her first time going out and seeing a play, so that's nice. And it was nice. Over there, put on by the Harrison Players in Harrison, New York. Okay, well, welcome to the show. It's going to be a nice one tonight. There's a ton of news. Daniel Penny has been acquitted on all charges. We knew that the most dangerous charge of the manslaughter was going to be out of the question after, Friday when they dropped those charges. And then we have a little bit more. They have an arrest on the healthcare CEO assassination. They have an arrest there. And that one, the details we'll save until the second half. I had a lot of questions, and then I found a very short 2 to 3 tweet thread that I was like, okay, this is a great summary of all the weirdness around this whole thing. But that'll be for the second half. I'm sure we'll have enough time for some calls, but a nice chunk of the whole show is going to be me and Robin McCutcheon right in the middle. Showing up. She'll be here around 7:25, so we got about 22 minutes. And that'll be great because I haven't heard any of her thoughts about the election. She's one of those people who we've brought on, and she was never anything less than totally confident about what we would show up and show the world as a citizenry. Now, as far as projecting into the future, there's a lot of things I want to ask her about. I want to ask her about the kind of the position that Trump has made against BRICS nations, which I don't understand at all. Maybe she has a different take. A few other things. I have a question about currency manipulation, and there's just a lot more. The job numbers are out, so we always time these very well. And I'm never actually looking at it. It just seems to be that every time she comes on, at least of late, there is a major, ridiculous, farcical job report that comes out, and then we get her to come and shit all over it. And that's the best part. Just sit back and hear her shit all over the job numbers. Okay. So that's what we have going on tonight. Speaking of farcical, I should say, here is a little bit from that guy, Joe Biden. Did you hear he was president once? Well, apparently he's still in office. I know it's a very, very strange world we live in. And he is right to the last day just doing all the important work. His administration, he says, is moving ahead on a 10-year plan to revive native languages. A man who can barely speak English. Let's take a listen to this shit.
She's an educator. On her first trip with Secretary Holland, she visited the language immersion program of the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. Jill saw Native children light up, as they recited words their ancestors once spoke. Over 3/4 of the remaining native languages,
I think he's speaking Apache right now, to be honest,
are in danger of being lost forever. That's why today my administration is moving ahead on a 10-year plan to revive native languages.
Kids we can't write in cursive anymore. can't write in cursive anymore. And he wants everybody to start living in teepees. I don't get it. I don't get it. Now I have a lot of great ideas. I think about having the federal government surrender a lot of land, all their land back to the states. I'd love to see reservations grow, and I'd actually love to see that happen. And I'd like to just see people take control of their lives. And I think cultural preservation of languages, those are things that I think that people are more than capable of doing on their own. But again, here we go. Here we go, meddling, finger in every pie. Well, he has a dumb colleague over here running the state of New York. She's pretending to be governor. Her name is Kathy Hochul. She's a beaver. She's a 5'5" beaver. Did you ever see her before? She's a really scary looking Nosferatu bitch. Anyway, she came out and did her best Bob Barker impression. I mean, this is like straight out of some game show. Trying to take a page out of Bill de Blasio's book where he's trying to, raffle off cheeseburgers so people can go and sauce up some untested bio waste sludge. Anyway, she has about, 6 or 7 black people standing by. I don't know why it's primarily black people. I don't know what else is going on at this press conference, but they're all holding a sign called "Show Me the Money, Governor Kathy Hochul." And what is she doing? Well, she's talking about an in-state stimulus, that she's a stimulus program. All New Yorkers that make like less than $300,000 are getting a couple of $100. They're going to get a couple of $100 to buy some groceries. Take a listen to this absolute failure of an unwanted, untalented bitch.
In my budget next month, they will send you a check to buy your groceries for a month or whatever you want to spend it on. And if you're an individual earning up to $150,000 a year, it's $300.
You're going to get a $300 check. Look.
What does that look like?
What does $300 look like? I don't know. 4 dozen eggs? A loaf of Tony's bread? I don't know. What does $300 look like? Look here. Look at this. It's a check.
All right. How about that for individuals?
How about that? How about that? You're going to get a $300 check. You can spend it on whatever you want. A night at the bowling alley. Oh, I love how she suggested that $300 can get you a month worth of food. Oh, you vampire.
Now,
that's not all. That's not all.
if you're filing jointly and you have a family, you need a little more, right? Families are expensive.
No, this is where they get you. You hope you got your little orphan Annie decoder ring out, everybody.
How about this? $500. $500.
$200 more. That's what you get from me. She really is like, this is like a Batman movie. This is a Batman movie.
For families earning less than $300,000, because I know life in New York City is expensive and your salaries may sound nice, but they don't go very far.
Oh yeah, well then why 3 weeks ago did you put in place lift the pause on the congestion tax? All these new taxes and tolls and everything else. Don't worry, we're going to give you a one-time check of $500. You shove it right up your ass. What I hope I can bump into you in the street one day. Say, "Hey, Kathy," and then I will say something to embarrass her in front of her entire beaver family. Her and 5 beavers walking behind her, just moseying on through. Anyway, there's some good news that came out of New York today. That's Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny acquitted in subway chokehold death of Jordan Neely, sparking applause and uproar in New York City courtroom. Manhattan jury has cleared Daniel Penny of criminal wrongdoing in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely in a crowded subway, a caught-on-video killing that sparked fierce debate over the city's mental health system and crime underground. The court erupted in applause as the panelists acquitted Penny of criminally negligent homicide, which could have put him behind bars for up to 4 years. In Neely's chokehold death aboard a crowded subway F train uptown. Now, Neely's father, who, of course, as has been widely reported, absentee for his entire troubled life, who now rented a suit and showed up to court and knows that this could turn into some kind of a civil case that perhaps he can cash in on, even though he had no real interest in his son's life prior to this mess. He was there, and he was very upset about it, and so were other, straggler, left behind, Black Lives Matter preachers. Take a listen to this. Here's an activist. What's his name? I don't know. Doesn't matter. They're all the same. They say the same shit. Black vigilantes. So calling upon vigilante, because this is vigilanteism, don't you know? Even though it was a coalition of black, white, brown, man, woman who was subduing this animal in the middle of the F train. Take a listen to this.
What we preach is unity, black unity. Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, what does this have to do with this court case? And they'll say something. They'll say something. There's no getting through to them. Just like this woman over here. Another leader. I guess this is the female division of BLM.
Because to be real, they didn't even try. Once the lesser charge was removed, they came back an hour later and said it was deadlock. Less than an hour and 20 minutes later, they said not guilty.
There was nothing to charge him on. Nothing. You wanted to make it about race. Your special interest wanted to make it about race, and it certainly was not. It just wasn't. But, as I've said many times before, ladies and gentlemen, there is no cure for rabies.
God for comfort. Goddamn them and goddamn America.
There you go. There's no cure for rabies. So, I don't know. All the Asian people in New York better watch out. There might be a little bit more, the knockout game might be coming back over the next couple of weeks. So watch out. Stop Asian hate ahead of time. Here we go. Here's the last one I got for you before we go to our opening. And that is, of course, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. There's a suspect that's been identified and apprehended. His name is Luigi Mangione. That's right. He's a Guinea. Ex-Ivy League Guinea. Apparently, listen, it's very strange. Now, you say mental break. Is it schizophrenia? Is it MK Ultra? It's very strange. There's things already coming out, but nothing makes sense. The suspect nabbed in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson is an anti-capitalist Ivy League grad who liked online quotes from Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. Well, I like those too. What does that mean? Ted Kaczynski got a lot right. And seethed in a manifesto. He had a manifesto. Did you know that? When he was apprehended in Pennsylvania in a McDonald's, he was just ID'd by somebody in there. I don't know who the hell working in McDonald's in Pennsylvania had this kid's like looking out for him. But he's in there, and apparently he had all the same clothes, at least on his person. He had the murder weapon, suppressor and all, a manifesto that clearly spells out exactly why he did. It was all together. All together. Things that should have been dumped along the way as you're leaving a couple of city blocks from the murder. Very strange stuff. This is supposedly somebody with like a 140 IQ who went to an Ivy League school. Tech whiz Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, originally from Towson, Maryland, apparently hated the medical community because of how it treated his sick relative. He's not been charged in the slaying, but was taken into custody on Monday morning while eating at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, ending in an intense manhunt sparked by the cold-blooded execution of Thompson outside of a Manhattan hotel last week. Former prep school valedictorian was caught with a ghost gun that uses 9mm bullets, a silencer, a U.S. passport, 4 fake IDs with names used during the killer's stint in New York City, and the manifesto. It was like the best package deal you can get if you're a law enforcement officer. The manifesto consisted of 2.5 handwritten pages that mirrored the quotes that Mangione posted on his Goodreads account from wacky anti-establishment Ted Kaczynski, the infamous Unabomber who terrorized the country for nearly 2 decades by mailing deadly bombs before he was nabbed in 1996. Imagine a society that subjects people to conditions that make them terribly unhappy, then gives them the drugs to take away their unhappiness, Kaczynski wrote at one point in a quote like by Mangione. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? There's not a shred of truth to that quote. A shred? That's a down stuff. So here's the thing. We have more on this in the second half because I want your calls, what you think about the Penny situation and this. But we're going to get started real quick because I want to set the table with a little bit of Syria before Robin McCutcheon shows up. Don't go anywhere. In fact, help me share the show far and wide by sending the link out to anybody you know or on any social media platform that you use regularly. We'll be right back.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's raise it.
All right, so it seems like somebody's trying to really remake the world in a hurry. In a hurry. There's a little bit over a month away. We're a little bit over a month away from the inauguration. And that initial buzz of the election, I'm telling you, there is a ridiculous amount of time in between election and inauguration. I know that some of it had to do with the fact that the country was not connected by fiber optic cable back in the 18th century. But then again, and of course, the government was such a small thing. The federal government was especially such a small thing that, filling positions and, getting a new administration all set up didn't take that long. It's just that people are traveling from long distances through inefficient means of public transport and everything else. Now I feel like you need 3 months only because you got 10,000 jobs to fill. And those jobs are not filled really months and months, if not a couple of years into some people's administrations, depending on how much adversarial nonsense you have going on in Congress, what the confirmations process is, this and that. But it is a long time, man. It really is a long time until Inauguration Day. But it'll be here before you know it, I guess. First thing I have for you is this. This is as of 12 noon yesterday from Zero Hedge. Bashar al-Assad and family are in Moscow. That's it. I mean, it happened real quick, but Syria has fallen and Assad is out. Since the overnight hours, Damascus has been under the control of the Islamist militants led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and backed by Turkey. The country's president, Bashar al-Assad, has been overthrown, and his whereabouts are unknown after the extremely rapid insurgent advances out of Idlib, where city after city fell, starting with Aleppo in a matter of about a mere week. And just like that, 50 years of Assad family rule has ended, and a new extremely unpredictable era of Syria begins. Just in time. Just in time. Will the country hopelessly fracture as did Iraq and Libya for years after their strongman leaders were overthrown? Will there be mass reprisal killings? Will Christians, Alawites, and Shia be subject to mass persecution and extermination? Will the country, which has already been through over 13 years of horrific proxy war, descend into sectarian and factional chaos and hell? Will Sharia law be enforced by gunpoint, or will some semblance of stable transitional government emerge? One thing is for sure, a U.S.-designated terrorist has emerged as a current de facto ruler of Damascus and of Syria. That means somebody who was created by us, probably, trained by us, funded by us. At this very moment, Washington has a $10 million bounty on his head. Yeah, definitely ours. Given his career as a jihadist began with al-Qaeda in Iraq, which was killing American troops in Iraq. The jihadist factions entered Damascus overnight without a fight from the Syrian army, and videos quickly emerged of armed fighters entering both the presidential palace or office, as well as Assad's private residence and Malki neighborhood. State television stations broadcast a message from HTS leaders urging calm and stable transition of power. New rules for Damascus include a curfew imposed from 4 p.m. to 5 a.m. local time, according to the local Al Watan newspaper. 4 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. I'm sure it's just transitional. CNN's all over it. How Syria's rebel leader went from radical jihadist to a blazer-wearing revolutionary. Yes, he seems very cleaned up. Nice guy. While the mood in the streets were generally jubilant, gunfire can be heard, but it's more likely this is from anti-Assad fighters firing in celebration into the air. Western mainstream media has also been celebratory, generally ignoring HTS's obvious al-Qaeda links and past present. But for every scene the media highlights of a few hundred people celebrating in a central square, there are many more thousands of families huddled and fearful in their homes, not knowing what entity or Islamist faction controls the checkpoint around the block. And just like that, number 6, actually it's like number 2 or 3 on Wesley Clark's list of 7 nations. Remember we got that years ago? Syria was actually high up that list, but it held on for a long, long time. And now that's number 6. The only thing left now is Iran. That's the only thing. You know, that's just what we got. And what do you know? What do you know over here? 6 years, it was 7 years. 7 years turned into 2 decades, but they finally got their 6th. So I don't know. I really don't know. Makes me wonder if this is really going to be our New Year's present or not. You remember in 2020 we were treated to that missile attack between Iran and the U.S., or they like rained missiles down on us, and I don't know. Who knows what was moving and shaking actually on there? They wanted it bad. The media wanted it bad. John Bolton tried so hard. I remember the unmanned drone downing out there in Iran. They're trying to get Trump to fire on Iran so bad, and now here we are. Here we are. Hell, Trump was a major advocate for peace and drawdown in Syria, and now Assad is just gone. A month before he gets there. One of the more ancient Christian nations in the world, in the region, especially in the world, mind you. And that'll be a distant memory soon, I'm sure, as the replacement governments have not panned out very well for anyone when it comes to humanitarian efforts and shit. Hell, ever since Obama and Hillary murdered Gaddafi in Libya, you can now buy an African slave in Libya for the price of a used PlayStation 4. It's very economical out there now, the slave trade in Africa, which is as popular and thriving as it ever was. So that's that. Okay, well, one thing we have here from U.S. Central Command announced Sunday that U.S. forces have conducted multiple dozens of major airstrikes targeting ISIS camps and their terror camps across central Syria. So we said, hey, let's just start kicking it up there. CENTCOM stated on Twitter, or X, the strikes against the ISIS leaders, operatives, and camps were conducted as part of the ongoing mission to disrupt, degrade, and defeat ISIS in order to prevent the terrorist group from conducting external operations and to ensure that ISIS does not seek to take advantage of the current situation to reconstitute in central Syria. Incredible, isn't it? And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli forces secured a buffer zone in Golan Heights after Syria's Assad toppled. He says, in a statement released by video on Sunday morning, Netanyahu said that the agreement hashed out in 1974 by Israel and former leader Hafez al-Assad regime collapsed on Saturday night because the Syrian army abandoned its position. The reason Israel seized the territory is because we have to take action against possible threats caused by the power vacuum left by the Assad regime's collapse. We have the Israeli army. We gave the army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile forces embed themselves right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. The question is, what will be suitable? How convenient. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of buffer zones secured by Israel in the coming years. I'm sure. Just going to be one buffer zone after another. Now we'll give it back when the conditions are favorable. Because now that's the new border. So anything outside the buffer zone needs to be buffed. It needs to be buffed again. Oh, there's just so much. Well, you know what? You know what, ladies and gentlemen? We can go on, but why go on when we can just bring on our good friend? Because the world really does seem to be in a rush to remake itself right now, or, somebody's remaking the world. But I couldn't be happier to chop it all up with someone who usually makes an appearance this time of year. And I have to imagine she's going to be bringing some more cheer with her, Dr. Robin McCutcheon. It's great to have you back on, Robin.
Thank you so much, Frank, for inviting me back.
Well, happy Thanksgiving.
And happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Oh, yes. All three. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I have to say, I don't think anybody in my family pulled the trigger yet, but your brandy balls, the brandy balls recipe was published in the first edition of the Quite Frankly newsletter back in September. And I know of at least 2 people out there who got in touch with me and said that they made it late September. They have been marinating. They have been soaking and aging and fermenting all that time. I have to imagine there's going to be a few families out there that are going to be well taken care of by those brandy balls.
They're going to love them.
I want to taste them. I'm so mad that nobody's made them yet.
Well, get Lauren, get them made. My goodness.
I know. I'm going to have to do so. I'm going to have to do it. Maybe I'll do that and the eggnog in one day. Yes, I will. It's going to be my little Saturday experiment. So, Robin, I'll give you one thing. You were never anything less than absolutely confident about what the election outcome was going to be, what we as citizens were going to show the world on election night. We haven't really spoken since November 5th, so I'd like to just hear your big takeaways. How did you process election night, and how have you been processing it since?
Election night. Well, I think I might have stayed up a little bit later than normal. I don't know, 9 or 10. I knew that President Trump was going to win. I had no doubt in my mind. And I went to bed and slept very well. And since the election has happened, and I've been watching the lefty liberals lose their shit on a daily basis, I have been just delighted, especially with all of President Trump's picks for all the many different cabinet positions.
Now, are you, because we've done a little bit of conversation on those picks. I'm less than enthusiastic about a number of them. Others, I'm excited. Others more, I'd just, the jury's out and just say, hey, listen, we got to roll the dice and let's see, are there any redemption arcs left for people that I have no faith in, or is it just going to be as bad as it seems? I don't know. But I have to imagine you're just going to be doing what I'm doing at this point and just calling balls and strikes and taking it one piece at a time.
I think we have to wait and see what happens. And I know I'm using a Trumpism by saying that. But remember what Trump tends to do. Let me use Fauci as an example. We know Fauci is I'm editing. He's a dirty, rotten son of a bitch. But Trump put him out in front of everybody, and now we know that he's an evil little bastard. And that's Trump's kind of modus operandi, right? Get somebody, pull them out in front, let them hang themselves. He might be doing that with some of his picks. I don't know. But I suspect that the picks for the essential cabinet positions are 100% behind Trump and that they are America first. And of that, I am quite confident. Some of these minor positions, I don't know. We have to wait and see.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm with you on that last part. Waiting and seeing and just being grateful that we're in a position that's not the other one. You were, yeah. I mean, you were one of the first people I thought of when we saw how many millions of votes were gone too off of the totals, because we know that there was a lot less paper out there and there's a lot more eyes, watchful eyes involved here. But you were the only person I spoke with on this show about the severity of the excess mortality rate and the untold impacts that it has on employment and productivity and all that stuff. But more than a couple people asked me, and I was already thinking to ask you, how much of a factor do you think excess death had on the election?
That's a really good question.
Is there any way to calculate? Probably not.
The only person I could think of that would be looking at that might be Edward Dowd with his finance technologies group. I have my doubt that the difference in ballot totals that we saw between President Trump and Harris, I have my doubts that that's due to excess mortality. My sense of it is that the 2020 election was stolen so massively by Biden that the difference that we see now is more normal. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Because when I look at,
because if you look at past elections, there's a very almost a steady number of people coming in for 2008, 2012, 2016, and then 2020 is just blown out of the water. And then when we're back to 2024, it's back to normal numbers. So I think that we are not seeing the excess death in the numbers for the 2024 election, between the 2024 and the 2020 election. I think that's indicative of how massive Biden and his fraud machine was overworking.
Yeah, and when I just to clarify, I did not, when I brought up the whole excess death question, I was wondering how much you think it might have factored in, because obviously this is all just about a massive amount of paper attached to no actually living people that were processed and reprocessed, because it doesn't matter who you throw up there. If you actually command 81 million people's hearts and minds and loyalties, then you can throw Kamala Harris out there to the wolves and she would still get at least 78 million votes. And she's...
I doubt that 78 million number, because it's come out since the election that the Harris campaign knew that they did not have the poll numbers. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think she ripped off that election to the tune of 50 million.
Do you think anybody's going to go to jail this time around? Because I got to say, going into 2016, and I hate all of I know it's probably just, public relations when Trump goes into one interview setting or another and says that, he actually protected Hillary because he didn't think it was good it would be good to see a former first lady get dragged off in chains and things like that. And I heard all that and I'm like, no, I don't want this person protected. So I don't know what that is all about. But really, when it comes into functioning now, I know that the media is very, very scared of what they call retribution and revenge. But these people worked overtime in tandem with each other to make sure that he had cuffs put on him, that he was mugshotted, that they were trying to put him in jail. They were going to go through with it if they had the opportunity to do it. They were not going to hesitate. So what do you think? I know what you hope. But what do you think?
Is it on my face?
I know you're getting like giddy over there.
I'm imagining structures of gallows.
Oh man!
Multiple ropes hanging above trap doors. I mean, can you blame me? That I think the amount of treasonous behavior among the mainstream media, the legacy media, and probably 98% of the politicians, call it state, federal, and local out there, I think there won't be enough hemp. There won't be enough rope. And I think when we get these rat bastards in front of the JAG military courts, I hope they hang them all.
Well, that's one thing, like I said
And
before.
I'm not a particularly bloodthirsty person, not really. But if you do not punish this treason with the ultimate penalty, people will feel free to do it again. And our country is much too precious to be allowed to be turned over to people who hate it and actively work to destroy it.
I'm glad you bring this up because you're getting to an issue of permanence there. Like, what do we do? Anybody out there who's just been following along for however long they have, they know that every 2-4 years, whenever there's a change of hands, either in Congress or there's a change of hands in the White House or something like that, one administration essentially wipes away the legacy with nothing, which is the pen that created the legacy beforehand. And there's really like this temporariness to things, and it creates a lot of confusion and a lot of volatility, especially in the world. We're going to get to BRICS in a little while. I'd like to do that, but the whole idea of permanence. Now, punishing treason is one way of saying going forward we're going to do things different, and the old scan, the old con is done. And the crimes against humanity are not going to be monetized for your personal gain at your little social club you have over there in Maryland. But that is one way that would make some kind of a change a little bit more permanent than just this tired routine of running from one side of the capsizing ship to the other every 4 years. And that just can't change anymore. I should say we have a chance right now that needs to be seized, because what the hell waits for us on the other side? We still don't know.
Well, but you have to remember that the right and the left are misnomers. Even Democrat and Republican are misnomers. The right and the Democrats and Republicans have actually switched positions since the 1960s. They're two sides of the same coin. And remember that our founders had told us, don't go into doing political parties, because eventually they will be working together. And that's exactly what most Democrats and most Republicans have been doing. They've been working hand in glove. So, for example, we had 8 years of Bush 2, baby Bush, and what did we get out of him? We got the towers, right? Building 7, the Pentagon, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And what came out of that? The Patriot Act that practically destroyed our freedom. It's mostly gone. And then we get Barack Obama, who says, oh, well, I want to transform America. Nobody ever asked him into what? I kept looking into his past and seeing communists and Marxists all over the place. And all I could think of was, this is horrible. Except that Bush had set him up for that smooth transition right into Marxism. Then we get President Trump, who the swamp is terrified of. The mainstream media spent 4 years trying to rip him apart. He went through 2 impeachments, right? Mm-hmm. Everything they could possibly do to put that man in prison, they have done. And because that man hasn't even gotten a jaywalking ticket in 78 years, they had nothing to stick on him. And so Trump moves us in a really good direction. And then Biden steals the 2020 election. What do we get for the last 4 years? Communism in your front yard. Actually, communism in your living room.
And war.
And war. So I'm not particularly impressed with Republican or Democrat. As far as I'm concerned, those two parties should be shoved into the dustbin of history. I think what we need going forward is a party of America first. And then if somebody wants to run against an America first, a true America first person, then what are they going to say? I'm America last? Who's going to vote for that?
Yeah.
So yeah, we have an opportunity here. It's not a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's a once in a country's history to rip our country away from these Marxist communist bastards that want to destroy us and put us back on the right path. And I'm fully confident that President Trump and his team are going to do that.
Okay.
We're going to see things that we thought would never be able to be done. And we are going to feel so good about the country that we are setting up for our children and grandchildren for generations. I mean, the 2024 election, it wasn't just another election. It was our only chance to defeat these dark, evil, I don't have enough bad words to say about them, but
just editing.
It was our only chance to take back our lives and our country and set it on the right path, because there just wasn't any other choice. And when you think about it, we had to go through these last 4 years of increasingly desperate and dire economic and financial situations. And you could throw in COVID there. I mean, it was getting progressively, steadily worse. And these last 18 months have just been abominable.
You know, I'd like to ask you a question.
We had to do that in order for the majority of Americans to see before them, well, I've got communism or I've got freedom. And that was their choice.
As an educator, because this is the time that I've been talking about since 2015 or so. When it was starting the primary season in 2015 started getting heated up, and then we're flung right into the middle of election season 2016, and I started talking about the wrecking ball mentality, how it is going to eventually run its course, and we're going to need to bring in the surgeons, the scalpel, instead of the wrecking ball to actually, you know, people are being jogged awake from a dream that maybe used to be nice, but now they're turning into nightmares. And everybody's kind of waking up. They're a little disoriented, wondering what the hell's going on. Why are there litter boxes in elementary school classrooms? You know, there is like really weird Twilight Zone shit. But this right here, I think that even though now we have 77.2 million people who voted for Donald Trump, where he got another 3 to 4 million people from the last time, you know, like you say, there is a major exodus here. But everybody's coming for different reasons. People are seeing things they don't like. This was a gut check, a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people, but it might be like I said, knee-jerk reactions are not always articulate. So as an educator, as I've told people like Brandon Strzok at Walkaway and a few other people, you are handling a lot of people who are waking up. They're seeing things they don't like, and they're just running and trying to grapple for some political independence. There needs to be an education phase to this. They need to understand what the Constitution was, what it means. Even if we can't achieve it again, they have to understand what checks and balances meant, why the Electoral College versus the popular vote. I mean, this is the stuff that we need to grapple with again. You're already in a classroom. What would you say to young educators out there, people who are going to get themselves into the homeschool scene or anything to try to really grab onto this wave of momentum and turn it into something that's lasting and has real good focus?
I think what I would say is first say a prayer for help, for divine providence and guidance. And then I think I don't think we're going to have that issue with educators so much going forward, because the students themselves will demand to know what is the true history. The students themselves, I mean, my students have, especially these last 2 years, have walked into my classroom sometimes more based than I am. They're looking for answers, right? They're the ones that went through the COVID years, sophomore, junior, and senior level, and they're the ones who have watched their families struggle to put food on the table, to keep their homes, to keep their cars, to keep their families together, and they can very clearly point to what is the problem. So I think that I think you're going to see two paths of educators. I think you're going to see educators who are communists and lefties being driven out of their academic settings. If they're at the college level, unless a student is required to take their class, they won't take it. There will be academic programs at the university and college level that will be canceled because students will refuse to take those classes. And in the public schools, we've seen all over the country where school boards have been removed and replaced by America First Patriot parents. And they will be making curriculum changes. President Trump has promised to remove the Department of Education and send it back to the states. In fact, he's already done that. Sean Brooks and I were talking about that about a year ago on his program. And, we were sort of puzzling over what does that look like when the state takes over the Department of Education's duties at the state level, but it's going to be the same story. Patriots are stepping up all over the place, and it will be patriots who design the new curriculums. In fact, I think even that the smartest thing for states to do is send the curriculum right back down to the local precinct and town and village level. I mean, that's where it used to be, right?
Absolutely. I'm glad that you and Sean have been talking about that. That's really interesting. Is that on one of his recent episodes?
Gosh, I don't have it in my head, but it was about a year ago.
Okay.
It was, I'd have to go back and look. But we talked about it because Trump had done that. He had done that before he left office. I think Sean and I were remarking on the fact that he had done that before he left office, and we were just sort of scratching our heads over what does that look like for the states. But there's a massive movement of parents removing their children from the public school system. They're homeschooling, or they're not private schools, but they're literally taking their students out of the public school systems. Well, what is the tipping point where the public schools do not have enough students for those head counts on Head Count Fridays? Do you remember those?
No.
We had them all the time in the school system that I came from. And I can remember teachers saying, oh, you have to show up on this particular Friday because we're taking a head count. That was how the school got paid. So if you remove your student from the public school system, the school doesn't get paid. They're going to go bankrupt. They're a communist organization anyway. The entire public education system is nothing but communism on steroids. They're going to go bankrupt. They're going to fail, with parents taking their students out of the public school system. The teachers, if they're some of these wacky blue-haired lefty liberal, they're gonna be run out of the school. I mean, the whole system is going to flip on its head. It's not going to happen all in a day. It's going to take some time, maybe a couple of years, maybe 10 years. But eventually, we're going to have a school system that honors and reveres free markets and the truth. And we're going to be getting a lot of information over the next 4 years about things that we thought were fact when in fact they were just false.
Okay. That's a great segue into the job reports numbers, because this is something that you have over the last 4 years. You want to talk about everybody just going out there and trying to make, try to translate this for people to say that, up is down, left is right, in is out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the last time you were on, you told us, said they're going to have to correct this close to, what was it, 98 million? What was it, 98 million? What, I forgot what the hell. It was a crazy number that they had to correct it downward. So they had puffed it up for whatever the hell that they were doing on the campaign trail. But now here we go. We have, after this one, we have one more in January before Biden, whoever the hell that is. You remember that guy? I mean, it's crazy how he's been completely out to lunch since July. There's been nothing there. But what are your thoughts on this latest job reports number for Christmas?
Well, first of all, back in August when I was on, I said, I think these jobs numbers are so out of whack, they're going to have to correct them. And in fact, they did in September. And we found out in September, I think it was the September jobs report, where the Bureau of Labor Statistics they sort of said, oops, we made just a little teeny tiny error someplace. We're missing 1 million jobs, or 1.1 million jobs. I mean, it was fantastical. But they did not learn the error of their ways. They haven't corrected anything, and we're still missing jobs. As far as I can tell, just in the last month, we've lost another 355,000 jobs, full-time and part-time jobs. We're still underwater on the jobs report, more than 1 million, like 1.3 million. The jobs numbers coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics let me put it this way. If I used data this bad and this wrong, and I fudged it this poorly, I would have been fired. Well, honestly.
Late August, this is the one that we were probably talking about. 818,000 fewer jobs than reported earlier. That's from the New York Times. I mean, that's not a misplaced decimal point. That's nearly 1 million.
It's more than 1 million jobs now. It's way more than 1 million jobs. And one of the things that came out after that labor report was that there were, and I think I even said it to you in August, was that there were no full-time jobs that Americans had received in several years. They'd all gone to foreigners, all of them. And so, I mean, we're not in any better position, of course not. And our small businesses have had 8 of the last 11 months of contraction. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has been consistently undersampling small businesses and oversampling large businesses. So the data is crap. The numbers that we're getting out, that we got out last Friday for Jobs Friday, were they were bogus. The quits, the number of people quitting their jobs is below COVID levels, which means they're holding on to that job with both hands. The jobs numbers that we're getting are overstated.
So would you suggest, or would you suspect that with one more report coming in early January, and then you're turning over the keys to a new administration, would you suggest what's going to happen? Would you think that there's going to be a lot more corrections coming?
So let me just finish this. The wages have been overstated consistently for months, which means we're not actually making as much money as the Bureau of Economic Advisors says we are. And recently they revised down the GDI, the gross domestic income. Voters weren't fooled at all. We know the economy has been shit for 3 years. So there will be one more jobs report the first Friday of January, and then I'm sure the numbers will be just as bogus. They'll try to put a really pretty spin on this. And then the first Friday in February, a week and a half after President Trump gets in, smash. It'll be horrible. President Trump's economy is massively horrible. And he'll have only been in office for, 10 days?
And it'll just be an unveiling of what was there.
Right, exactly. We're all
Okay.
going to find out how really crappy we all knew the economy was, but we've been lied to. We've been propagandized and bullshitted and gaslit for 4 years. So, and if the really bad numbers don't hit in February, it'll hit in March. Oh my God, President Trump's economy is so bad. Well, he's only been in office for 6 weeks. How can it be his economy just yet?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that we've got an unemployment rate of 4.2%, but if you add the number of unemployed people, about 7 million, a little over 7 million, with the number of people who are not even in the labor force. These are the people who they're not looking for a job, they're not available, they're not looking for a job, they're not even discouraged workers, they're just out of the labor force. That's a little more than 101 million people. So if you take that 107 million people and you divide it by the working age population, you get an actual real unemployment rate of about 40.2%.
That's insane.
That's 10 times higher, literally 10 times higher than the 4.2% that the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been gaslighting us with.
I mean, that's just when you think about 40% of anything gone.
Right.
That's insane because those are just people who are of age, of working age, and are eligible to work. On top of that, you have children, you have the elderly. That takes even more of the greater population off the table. I mean, what the hell? The fact that anybody out there is screaming about people paying their fair share is incredible. It's incredible. And here, let me ask you this too, before we get into BRICS. Every time now, I'm glad I remembered this, but there's a lot of people out there who are trying to LARP into people's minds this idea that anybody's going to have buyer's remorse for voting for Donald Trump, especially before the inauguration. They're like, oh, hey, I see things like this all the time, Robin. I wonder if Trump supporters who voted for groceries are happy that their guacamole prices are going to go through the roof. And because they're talking about tariffs, they all just learned what a tariff is, and they're trying to whatever. But every time that they go to talk about tariffs and trying to bring production back home to America, they always admit a couple of things to us. Number one, that we rely far too much for things like food, pharmaceuticals, all that stuff on foreign nations. And they think that, that should not be corrected? There's going to have to be a little bit of time for adjustment. This needs to be corrected. And number two, when it comes to employment in particular, they continue to hammer down this 30 to 40% of our farm hands are illegal immigrants, and that is going to destroy our ability to produce food as well. So when I think about 40% of people who are 40% unemployment rate, and they keep talking about 40% of our farm hands are not even American citizens, I'm like, geez, I mean, is it really just slave labor that is keeping us afloat right now?
Do these people never go visit farms? Do they? I mean, do they not realize that the time has long been gone, by decades, where we were importing people from Mexico. They were not migrant workers, but they were seasonal workers, and they would come up from Mexico and they would work their way up through the states. Hell, I remember them in Michigan. They would work their way through the state as the harvest of the various foods were coming along, and by the time they got done harvesting the apples, which were nearly the last things before winter hit, then they'd move back to the South. And the days are gone, though, when we use millions of those kinds of seasonal migrant workers. And they weren't here to live. They were here just to work. And by the time they all went back to Mexico, late November, early December, to wait for the next, round of whatever crop is being harvested early in the spring, into summer, into fall. They weren't here to live. They were here to work. But we haven't used those kinds of seasonal migrant workers in decades. these poor lefties think that their avocado prices are going up because we're not importing enough, but California produces 95% of the avocados that we eat. 95%. So, I mean, you know, I wish these people could get a clue. I really do.
The armchair economists that have popped up.
Well, that's me. I'm an armchair economist, except that most of the time I'm gripping the arms and I want to throw something at the TV.
I mean, the wailing and screaming over tariffs is incredible. But yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea by President Trump. And I think that after the lefties start seeing a lot of the prices that they're paying for things that they really want to have, I think when they see those prices start going down because we start producing those things here in the United States with our workers, I think that, do I think that they're going to say, oh, I was wrong? No. It would be nice if they actually woke up to how things really do work. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not in the next 10 years, but eventually they might get a clue. President Trump's tariff policy is brilliant because it's going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And that's exactly where it needs to be. And the reason that we don't have a lot of manufacturing in the United States is because out of the late 1960s and early 1970s, there was a concerted effort among economists, policy makers, policy writers to send our manufacturing overseas where labor was cheaper. And a lot of that had to do with the high price of wages that was being imposed by unions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at the history of how our labor force has been decimated over the last 80 years since the end of World War II, it's very clear to me that this was an intentional thing to do. Economists started talking about a service economy towards the end of the 1970s, saying, well, what we really need is a service economy where, you know, you're just paying for services, and then that way we won't get these big booms and busts because of the manufacturing economies, that the manufacturing industries that would you know, work like gangbusters through the spring and the summer and the fall, and then it would all kind of fall off in the winter. And so you'd get a slump from January, March, and April. And so economists had been looking at this since the late 1960s and said, well, what we really need is a service economy. So it's just sort of a steady state. And policies were designed, taxes were imposed, companies got up and left. And what have we been left with?
Nothing.
And nothing good. So what Trump is doing is he's going to reverse that flow. It's going to need a minute, but it really is going to work out nicely for everyone.
I don't doubt that very much. I don't doubt that. There's one thing that has really thrown me for a loop here that I want to read to you, and it's about BRICS, and it also combines tariffs as well. Now, this is from Just the News, wherever you want to go and find the coverage on this story. It came out around December 1st. It was based on I think a Truth Social post that Trump had put out around the time. Here are a couple of things here. Trump warns BRICS countries from trying to replace the dollar as world reserve currency. Says 100% tariffs. On Saturday, Trump threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS nations. Quote, the idea that BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over, Trump wrote on Truth Social on Saturday afternoon. He continued, we require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty U.S. dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. Now, I just got to say, Robin, he must know that the formation of BRICS was a hedge against the controlled demolition of the U.S. dollar and the way that we engage in these self-defeating sanctions and everything else. We're not trying to be good neighbors in the world. We are authoritarian thugs. So I don't understand this aggressive position, what it could be about, when no one could possibly expect BRICS members to think that the dollar is a safe bet again, just because we have Trump. For all they can bet on is 4 more years. Who knows about permanence?
Right.
What could be made permanent? Right. So there is this question of what you think could be established in 4 years that would give BRICS nations confidence in a long-lasting stability that can be reestablished within the dollar. But other than that, I don't understand the aggressive posture on this particular thing when it's very clear this was a self-defense mechanism because we are run by psychopaths. I don't understand this.
I think you're right. I think we've been run by psychopaths. But let me show you. Can you see my dollar?
Yes.
My $20 bill?
Yes. Looks beautiful.
And across the top, it says Federal Reserve Note. This is not a U.S. dollar. We call it a U.S. dollar, but it is not a U.S. dollar. What is behind this Federal Reserve Note? Any assets?
Nope.
No gold, no silver, no oil, no lumber. No. There's nothing but debt behind this Federal Reserve Note. So we don't have a US dollar right now. So put that article back up there.
Okay.
Please.
You got it.
Back up to the top where Trump says
countries, it warns countries from trying to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency.
Right. This is not a dollar. It is not a U.S. dollar. So what is Trump trying to tell us?
The dollar's coming back?
I think this piece of shit paper, this piece of toilet paper, I think this is going away. I think what President Trump is going to do, because he's already done it, and I think I've told you several times in past interviews that in February of 2020, President Trump, February 2020, before COVID hit, before it got here officially, President Trump put the Federal Reserve under the umbrella of the U.S. Treasury. This happened, it was official by the end of March 2020. Yeah. The Federal Reserve is going to be eliminated and replaced with something that says United States of America with a U.S. note that is backed by gold or silver or lumber or oil. Because those BRICS countries have been working for, as close as I can tell, almost 20 years to kind of scoochie their way out of using a Federal Reserve note. Because you're right, the country's been run by psychopaths, and every time a country decided, hey, I don't want to use a Federal Reserve note or I don't want to use U.S. treasuries, we sent the military in. Look at what happened with Gaddafi. He said in a UN setting, he said, those people over there, kind of pointing at the U.S. ambassador, those people over there are not going to allow us to use our own currencies. That was the whole purpose of setting up the International Monetary Fund, the IMF and the World Bank and the Federal Reserve System and the UN, was to make the Federal Reserve note a hegemony, basically a wall for the New World Order. It was designed, the whole entire system was designed to bring every country underneath the auspices of using a Federal Reserve note. So if President Trump is talking about a US dollar, he cannot be talking about this piece of shit. He's got to be talking about something else. And I don't know if you know it. I know that your audience does because I pay attention in Twitch and Rumble. Your audience knows President Trump talks in code to us. There are many layers to when he's talking. He knows the Federal Reserve System is a Ponzi scheme. He knows that it was instituted in our country under fraud and swindle. that debt that we owe, the $36 trillion or $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities, that was all gotten by fraud and swindle.
I was just about to ask you about that, Robin, because when with everything you're saying right now, what comes to my mind first is chronological order of events. What, obviously he's messaging the BRICS nations that there's a new sheriff in town and something new's coming. But again, it's puzzling to me, and he can't possibly think that they will feel comfortable dealing with the dollar, the Federal Reserve note that we call a dollar, in its current state, just because we have a new president.
They're not going to. They're not going to, because the BRICS countries are comprising a larger and larger portion of the world's population. They have already agreed among themselves that when they trade, they are going to be using their own currencies that are backed by gold and silver or some other asset. They've already created their crypto coin called the unit that is 40% backed by gold. And then for any two countries that are trading, each country has to put in 30% of some other asset. So you're going to have a crypto that has assets behind it. Not even Bitcoin can boast that one. And so when you have 50 or 60 or 70% of the world's countries that are trading with each other using real currencies, this piece of toilet paper cannot stand against that. And so that's why it's going to collapse under its own weight if President Trump insists on keeping the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so
there has to be a shift.
Okay, but
because we cannot be a free republic when we are beholden to these banksters.
The shift I'm thinking about right now is, as you said, $36 trillion and counting. I'm on U.S. debt clock. Right now, every breath we take, another $1 million. $36.2 trillion right now.
To the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom and look at the unfunded liabilities.
Yeah.
That's the lower right-hand corner. Yeah. 221 trillion, 601. I can't even see the end of the.
Yeah.
Those are our promises to pay.
And for everybody in the audience, you should know that of the unfunded liabilities, that's Social Security, that's everything rolled into one. We all owe $654,725 each. That's per citizen, not per taxpayer, by the way. Right. But here's the question, Robin. As you said, $36 trillion in fiscal operating debt, $221 trillion in things that we haven't even paid yet. How does all that go away? What is it? You can't just say a debt jubilee when you're still asking, you still have to pay. I mean, all these programs are still on the books. What do you do? Are you really going to cover Social Security through tariffs? Are they going to be like a HSA kind of accounts now? If that's the case, then stop doing it all. Is there a sunset clause that we just stop altogether? This is a lot of money just to come off the books and not have some kind of a, I don't know how to transfer that into something new. How do you do it?
How would I do it? I would have a debt jubilee. And knowing and understanding that the debt that we have been hobbled with and cobbled with and chained to was all got by fraud and swindle. Now, fraud vitiates all contracts. That money clearly is owed, so it's going to have to come from somewhere. Is it all going to come from tariffs? No, but it can't come from taxes. It can't come from, a piece of cotton that is backed by nothing. And so what if, this is just me thinking, because I've been listening to some people who are smarter than me, what if we really did have a strategic reserve of Bitcoin? What if the U.S. government took some of these pieces of toilet paper and turned them into Bitcoin? What if we really did have a U.S. note that's backed by gold and silver? What if we really did get rid of the Federal Reserve and the IRS so that every dollar that you earn stays with you? What if the people that are owed the money, the old people who are on Medicare, well, not Medicaid, but Medicare and Social Security, that they're paid back with a U.S. note that is backed by gold or silver. What if? I'm just asking what if, because all of this debt has been foisted upon us through laws that were passed fraudulently.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to you cannot let it stand. If you're going to have a true republic, you can't let a fake money system stand. You can't let it would be very difficult, I think, to say to the world's leaders, you have to take our Federal Reserve note, even though we know it's worthless.
That, yes, it doesn't make any sense.
And there's another thing that's been popping up. Did you not hear about China finding some $83 billion worth of gold? That I just read that El Salvador found some $100 billion worth of gold also. Where is this gold coming from? Is gold really as valuable as we think it is, or is it really silver that's valuable? Because I've heard Andy Shankman say that with the amount of gold contracts, puts and call options out there, with the amount of gold contracts and the price of gold being suppressed, that perhaps the real price of gold is closer to $50,000 to $100,000 an ounce.
And I heard that silver, in its own right, is somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000 an ounce.
Right, and if you go back to that usdebtclock.org and you look on the right-hand side, you're going to find a dollar value of gold that is not $2,600 per ounce. Look over on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's group over there.
There you go. It looks like 12,566 per ounce.
Yeah.
And silver looks like it's $1,554 per ounce. And I think those are ridiculously low numbers. I think multiply them by 10.
Now this is this again.
But you asked me how would I clear this debt? Well, first of all, the debt's a fraud to begin with. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're going to take our country back to its original foundations, then we have to remove the Federal Reserve. We cannot be using this toilet paper that everybody pretends is money and isn't. We have to go back to a sound money system, which means that I think this debt is going to get wiped off the books. The people who are owed money are going to be paid with a true money currency, something backed by silver or gold or some other asset. I think that cryptos are going to play a large part in this, because I mean, we already sort of use a cryptocurrency, right? Don't you have a credit card?
Yeah.
You go to the grocery store, you use a debit card. Well, that's pretty much like a crypto.
And to be honest, it is not as secure as cryptocurrency is, as far as the technology.
Look at Hack to a girl.
Listen, I never deny that aspect of it. My biggest issue has always been going forward, the long run, what's behind it, what's backing it, and there's a difference between saying I've got X amount of Haktua coin in my Exodus wallet and I have 5 pounds of silver in my left hand. I'm always going to take the 5 pounds of silver. Right. But there is demand, there is scarcity, but the biggest problem that everybody has is just the fact that it's not physical. And if there's any kind of way where these digitized secure currencies can be backed and redeemable with something that is physical, that would be a game changer for a lot of people.
That has to be the direction that we're going. That is the only direction that you can go to be free. Because with any kind of a system where the bankers own the currency, where the bankers, and I'm saying currency because this is not money, in any kind of a system where you have private bankers like what own the Federal Reserve and the World Bank and the IMF, any kind of a system where a select group of people gets to print the currency that people use is automatically going to put you into a slave position. And I truly believe that President Trump is taking us back to our original foundations of a republic, which means we have to go back to sound money, just like it says in, what is it, Article 1, section, can't remember which section in Article 1 that says you have to use gold and silver.
I think 10.
Okay. I don't remember the exact section, but our Constitution demands that we use gold and silver. Why? Because the founding fathers had already been through all that shit with the King of England.
Yeah.
That was why they put it in our Constitution. So if we are going back to our original foundations, then you know, Federal Reserve, you can kiss it goodbye. And even Jerome Powell came out a couple of weeks ago when he was asked, well, by a reporter, well, if President Trump asks you to resign, are you going to? And he said no. And the reporter said, well, why not? And he says it's not permitted under the law. He said it really fast, and then he said it really slowly. Not permitted under the law for President Trump to fire me. He basically admitted that the Federal Reserve is a private corporation.
Well, we got that on tape from Alan Greenspan years ago. That was even more egregious.
Right?
Yeah.
So we cannot have a select group of private bankers who are swindling us out of our labor hours, because that's what this money boils down to. This currency boils down to our labor hours, because all there is behind this is debt. So what supports this currency is you and me working our asses off. And I don't know about you, but I'm fucking tired of being a slave.
I'm tired of it as well, Robin. I'm getting sick to my stomach just knowing that I have to cut another check to these bastards at the IRS in a couple of months. I'm getting sick to my stomach thinking about what I can thinking about what I can do for this room.
Right, exactly. So I truly believe that Trump is taking us back to our foundations of a constitutional representative republic, which means that we're going to go to a true money that is backed by an asset. Gold or silver has been the one that humans have been using and gravitating to for 10,000 years. Not a Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not a big complainer about Bitcoin, but there's nothing behind it but electricity. Yeah, okay, maybe there's only 20 million of coins available. So what? You may as well have Pepe or Dogecoin for all the good for all something that's behind it. I mean, at least the BRICS are looking at using their crypto coin and putting an asset behind it, where that asset is sequestered in one of their country's central banks, so that unit has value, that has a real asset behind it. And those countries have been moving away from using a Federal Reserve note and U.S. Treasuries. U.S. Treasuries are just debt. It's government debt. And it's stupid to me to buy that and to use it. And so that's why the BRICS countries have been moving away from that. I don't blame them.
I have to ask you now, because, and this will be a good way that we can end. Whatever you can give me on this, we don't have to go too deep into it, because maybe it can be a whole other thing that we can dip into on a upcoming show. But the whole idea of currency manipulation, it made me realize how all of this made me realize how little I actually understood about it. I thought I understood basics, but what I can't understand for the life of me is how taking steps to depreciate or devalue one's own domestic currency makes you more attractive and competitive on the world stage as far as exports go. How does depreciating your own currency present an advantage, especially for your own citizens of the country who's now using currency that's being devalued at the point of sale and all that stuff? I don't get this.
Okay, well, a lot of that has to do with the interest rate associated with the debt that's being issued. Now, let me see if there's, how can I say this? So the more money that's printed, there's the supply of money, and I'm talking literally the more of these that are printed, it drives down the interest rates here locally. And what that does is for someone in a foreign country, they look at these low interest rates and they compare them to their own country's interest rates. Now, historically, the interest rates in the United States have been on average higher than other countries' interest rates. So it's something that one of my professors used to call the grandma effect. Grandma over in a foreign country sees higher interest rates here in the United States. And so she wants to deposit her money here in the United States. But in order to deposit her money here in the United States, she has to have US currency.
Mm-hmm.
So she sells her French francs, for example, which I know the French don't have a franc anymore, but she sells her French franc and she buys US dollars.
Where do you go to exchange that? Where do you go to that?
I can go to any bank.
Any bank? Okay.
Probably. So she buys the US currency and she deposits it in a US bank. And so these ebbs and flows of foreign currencies across the world, and all of this is done by electronic banking. I'm sure back in the day she actually had to send a courier with actual cash money, but the currency manipulation these days, we're talking tens of trillions of dollars in microseconds flowing across the world from country to country. And in little teeny tiny seconds, a smidge of an increase in the interest rate here will have an impact over there. It's a lot of it is like the butterfly effect, right? Butterfly flaps its wings in Japan, and Costa Rica has a hurricane. So the currency manipulation is a way of, how do I want to say this? It's a way of controlling another government. It's a way of controlling people in other countries. When you're talking about tens of trillions of dollars, which is no small amount of money, you're talking about having power and control over other countries' governments and other countries' peoples, to the point where maybe you don't have to send in the US military to take out a leader.
I get what you're saying, but let's take China.
It's much more complicated, and I would need a couple of charts to show you. But the currency manipulation that the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government have been performing for at least as long as the Federal Reserve has been here, has been appalling. And I think that the one way that the BRICS countries could see from getting out from underneath that umbrella was just to pick up and leave. And you know what a favor Biden did for Russia in February of 2022 when he kicked Russia off the SWIFT system. Russia's like, that's fine, we can go. We got our own system, we're working on it. So you're going to see more countries say, we're not going to use the US dollar, but remember, this is not a dollar. This is a Federal Reserve note. And we have spent so many decades calling this piece of paper a dollar that we don't understand mentally. We have to retrain our brains to think about dollar as some different form of piece of cotton or piece of paper. Does that make any sense?
To a degree, because and here's the reason why I brought it up, because I was reading an article from in the Epic Times, I think about a day or two ago, and currency manipulation had actually popped up, but it was more so talking about how other countries take advantage of us by devaluing their currency, and when I and the extent to which they went, describing the situation. Let's just say Malaysia. When you say devalue a currency, the first thing I think about is inflation. Would I be on the okay? So they dump all this extra money into the economy. They devalue the currency. How does that translate into an advantage in the export market? In exports, I don't understand how that just went right over my head. I asked Grok and a few other things. I'm like, this kind of makes sense. It's not my forte, so I just want to know if you can pre-digest it for me. But we can do this for a main topic next time you come on if you want.
Well, let me just say, countries that send their items here are paid at the port. Countries that send their items here are paid at the port, and there has to be a currency exchange, right? We have to pay them. We can pay them in Federal Reserve notes or U.S. Treasuries, and historically that's how it's been. We've paid for their stuff using our currency, but when we send stuff to other countries, they've used our currency as well. But what if they decide not to? What if we get a shipload of toys that comes in from China, and whatever company has made those toys doesn't want to be paid in Federal Reserve notes or U.S. Treasuries? How do they get paid? They can let the ship sit there waiting for payment, but what if they don't want U.S. dollars? What if, and the whole reason that that the U.S. dollar was one of the reasons that the U.S. dollar was instituted as a world reserve currency, besides all the manipulation and control of countries around the world, was that it was a common currency, and that was both buyer and seller could be using the U.S. dollar. But again, if you are in a foreign country and you have to have U.S. dollars to pay for a shipload of stuff, how do you get it? You have to sell your own currency, which depreciates it, to buy the U.S. currency so that you can pay for the U.S. stuff that's coming into your country, and just reverse that for imports coming into the United States. If the company from China sending the boatload of toys over doesn't want U.S. currency, they want instead yuan, then someone's got to go trade U.S. currency for yuan. And these, did that make any sense?
Minimal.
Okay.
I'm trying hard over here, Robin.
You and Aurora are sitting in your living room. Aurora brings you a pen.
Yeah.
She wants you to buy this pen.
Okay. Is she China?
She can be China.
Okay.
Aurora wants you to buy this pen. What do you have that Aurora values?
Well, I mean,
that's an open-ended question.
I would,
but do you see?
But
Aurora wants some value for her pen.
Right, but the question I had is the sender of the sender of the pen. If they depreciated their own currency before that exchange, how do they get an advantage in the exchange if they have a depreciated currency? Like you go and you quantitative easing in China over there, and you just completely whatever, you destroy the buying power of your dollar, the yuan or whatever. Then you come to me with your pen. You come to me with your pen, and how do I get screwed on that exchange?
Okay, so I went to Nicaragua about 20 years ago, maybe a little more. And at that time, the Nicaraguan Cordoba was about 6 cents. So their $1 was worth 6 cents in my currency. They can send their items, so they devalued their currency. They can send their sugar to the United States and make more money on sending their sugar to the United States than we would pay for our own sugar here. So for example, in Nicaragua at that time, they were sending 95% of their sugar to the United States. And because it was imported and therefore maybe natural, it was all natural Nicaraguan sugar, it was $6 a pound. Whereas I could buy 4 pounds of sugar made in Michigan for 69 cents. It was cheaper for me to buy sugar made in the United States, but if I wanted Nicaraguan sugar, I was going to pay $6 a pound. But back in Nicaragua, their currency was so devalued and so depreciated that when I went there, I took $500. Oh man, I was the lady with the money, because that for every $100, I was getting 1,753 Cordoba. I was wealthy. And so
this makes sense. This makes sense now.
So expats from the United States were moving down to Nicaragua, and they were buying up places in Managua and Grenada and, places along the coast, because you could live very, very well on Social Security. You could have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, brand new. You could afford a housekeeper, a cook, a pool boy, and somebody to take care of your lawn, just on your Social Security. Now, they don't have any property rights down there, so, a lot of those people lost their shit when Ortega, or whatever his name was, came back into power. We happened to slip into the country in between communist regimes, which was really cool. But so their currency, the Cordoba, was only worth 6 cents, a nickel and a penny. Their dollar was only worth 6 cents. That's how much they had depreciated their currency. So when they stuck to the United States, does that make any
that is exactly what I'm trying to get. That makes perfect sense, because then you can see how, even just like with the product of sugar, you are essentially, as a poor country or a smaller economy with a weaker dollar, you're essentially dominating the American sugar market and taking high valued currency out of the country.
Right.
There you go.
Now, so they were sending 95% of their sugar to the United States, but compared to our sugar market, it was about that big.
Yeah.
It was 1% of our sugar market. So,
and therefore the tariffs to level this out comes into play to make sure that people are more incentivized to buy the sugar from Michigan.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
All right. That makes perfect sense. I'll forget it. By the time I get home, I'll forget it. But I'll just.
I knew that trip to Nicaragua would come in handy sooner or later.
Yeah. See, but the good thing is that this is recorded now. I can go back and I can re-listen to this conversation, and it'll get easier and easier from here on in. Robin, this is.
Listen, I'll tell you. Going travel. I'm not a world traveler. I really am not. I have. It's difficult for me sometimes to unwind my brain from around the Federal Reserve note, and but once I've been in a country for a few days and I'm using their currency, then things begin to make more sense to me.
Got it. Well, listen, you spent a lot more time with me on tonight than I expected you to, but we got some really good work done. And I just want to thank you, and I want to send all my love and the love of the audience they really just love when you come on, to you, to Tim, for not only the belated Thanksgiving, but now Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff. And what I would love as a Christmas gift is that some point in this winter, whether it is the February or March edition, we would love to have a piece by Robin McCutcheon in the Quite Frankly newsletter. That would be amazing.
I would love to do that. Just let me know what you want me to babble on about, and I'll babble on.
Okay, well, linksync.
I'll write it out.
Yeah, you can also handwrite it, and we can just scan it, and we can put it in as that would be nice.
You wouldn't be able to read it.
Yeah, just like a teacher. But anything you want to leave people with? I have linksync.com in the description of the episode. Anything else you got coming up? Are you going to be appearing on Sean's show anytime soon? Let everybody know what's up.
I'm on Christmas break right now. I haven't really heard from anybody. I think my next appearance is sometime in January with the Dave Janda radio program.
Wow, Dave Janda.
Yeah. He was the one who got me started doing all these podcasts and interviews. But what I want to leave your audience with is the times that are coming, that we're going to be walking through these next 4 years and the years afterwards. These times are the most unique in history. And we are never going to see this. We're never going to see this again. We're never going to have to yank our country's very life out of the hands of despots. And so what I would say to you is enjoy the Christmas holidays, be with your family, love your family, and look into the future for those things that are your dreams, and then go get them. Because it's really going to get good. It's going to get gooder and gooder.
Very well said. And that's a welcome change from the usual. That is, hug your families because it's going to get rough. So I'm gonna take that with me. Yes.
Rough is a matter of perspective, right? It's a matter of attitude, and I think that there could be a little bit of rockiness, but I suspect it might not be for all of us.
Right. And the other thing there too is when you go through a really hard workout, and when you go through, you're walking a trail, you're doing something that is going to really, really suck in the moment. There's always that moment afterwards where you crack open that cold bottle of something and you're just having a break and you feel the strain in the muscles. You have yourself a shower and you thank God that you went through it, because that's what I'm hoping for right now, because I have to say, admittedly, I have a much rosier outlook on what could be going into this year. I mean, the Devils are not done thrashing by any stretch of the imagination, but there's so much more possibility. That in itself takes a big load off, and of course, talking with people like you add to that relief as well. So thanks again, my friend. I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Frank, for having me back on, and God bless you, and God bless your family, and God bless America.
There you have it. Robin McCutcheon, everybody. Dr. Robin McCutcheon. Let's go on a really quick break. When we come back, I'll be able to, I have a few things that we can tack on to the end here, as well as your super chats, quite frankly, superchat.com. But let me read those Rumble rants. Get the Rumble rants coming in, and the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv. I'll get that in, and hopefully 1 or 2 calls. This was such a rich night of conversation. I would need a whole third hour to get this in. But you know what? To hell with the intermission. I can't do it. I get here for intermission. I'll say this. If you like this show, if you enjoy this show and shows like it, please, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage your voluntary free market support of independent media that you enjoy consistently, like this show. And in December, as you may or may not know, I have these wonderful coins. I don't know if you've seen them yet. They are absolutely fantastic. Where is it? Where the hell are my coins? Well, I got them in my hand over here. We got these awesome, quite frankly, coins that we started making from wood. My buddy Brian that did it out there. We got 100 of these. I'm sending these out. Anybody who sends in a Christmas card, the P.O. box is on the Sponsor Us page on quitefrankly.tv. Anybody who sends a Christmas card gets a Christmas card back. I know many of you out there consider me part of the crew at home with your landscapers, the garbage men, Frank and his talk show. Some people send, little tips and gratuities. Whatever, I will send the Quite Frankly coins and stickers and Polaroids, and we will love you back. As far as becoming monthly sponsors go, Patreon, Subscribestar, directly through quitefrankly.tv. Anybody who becomes a monthly sponsor gets a Quite Frankly coin. I'm going to ask you for your address. We're going to send it out to you. If you've become a sponsor on quitefrankly.tv over the last 9 days and you have not sent me your address yet, send it to me in email. Just respond to the welcome email that you got when you became a sponsor. We just want to give things away. I'm also going to be giving away Black Wheelchair Santa. We have one more that's going out to you guys and gals. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be giving away another round of silver. The last round of silver over here. I'm just going to give it all away. Support the show, okay? Support the show. It's all we need. A little goes a long way. And if just 2% of this audience jumped on board, we would be really in a good position for 2025 as far as expanding the operation, bringing better people in to join the current crew and expand out, do other things. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, let's see. First one up on quitefrankly.tv. Stowe Stoop says, great Monday, wonderful night to catch a live show when Robin is on. Thank you so much. Jay Britz says, oh, sure, Frank, all glowy assassins walk around with their pocket manifestos. It seems like protocol. It really does, doesn't it? It really does. It's stupid. It sounds really stupid, but my, oh, my. I got to get around to some thoughts that I saw before the show started. Jay Semo says, shame on me. I forgot all about the brandy balls. I've got to get my wife on it ASAP. Great guest. Robin is excellent. Thanks. Hey, listen, if you go and make that right now, I've actually got a new, it's an old eggnog recipe that came from my friend Gypsy. It's a family recipe that he would whip up that night, and we would drink it that right there. Frothy, creamy. We'd have to consume this eggnog with a spoon. It was so thick. It's incredible. It's not like the George Washington eggnog I made 3 years ago where it had to sit for a week. So you can do one or the other. It's up to you. But these brandy balls, I know that Robin says that they should like ferment for a couple of months, but it's the 9th of December. You can still get a couple of good weeks in. They'll probably still knock you on your ass. Thank you, Jay. Let's see what else we have over there on Rumble. We got another one from Jay Semo. Says, what a great show. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you liked it. No doubt about it. Esther G. We'll open the lines over here. Here, the line is open. Call in if you'd like. Esther G says, dropping by early to thank you, Frank, for bringing back a favorite, Dr. McCutcheon. Witchy Poo, thank you. Captain Flint says the McDonald's worker became suspicious when he demanded to speak to the CEO. Can I speak to the CEO of McDonald's right now? He's like loading his weapon. I don't recall, thank you. Safety Net, thank you so much, Safety Net. Sean Joe with a bunch of cookies. Doug Simmy. D. Daled. Boys Blanc, Porpoiseful says, thank you for having Dr. Robin on again. Empress Bitch to you. C. Lynn says, love Dr. Robin. C. Blanche says, amen. Great guest tonight, says Boys Blanc. P. Quest is out there, along with Doug Simmy and Witchy Poo and Braves Piano. And Chai Possum says, Frank, you've got a package coming your way from me and Possum Jones. Be on your lookout any day now. This time of year, I'm always going to the P.O. box, and I will be sending out Christmas cards. I told Lauren, get an extra 100 this year, because we are sending out Christmas cards in reply to people's wonderful cards. Let me tell you something else. Just the things that you guys, that people write to me, this is the time of year that I just get blanketed in good feelings, the gratitude. It's wonderful to hear how you guys enjoy the show, how you watch it, how the family gets involved with the settings, your rituals. I love learning about you guys. It's a great time of year, and I love sending things back. I do a lot of writing, but it's all worth it. Brew Bark says, I love Robin. Okay. All right. Let's play this real quick. Unless we do a little bit more of this tomorrow. The suspect in fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO. Maybe I do this tomorrow, along with our major UFO updates in New Jersey. Maybe I just take you guys. I'm going to take some calls, and we will do Daniel Penny calls, the United Healthcare arrest in Pennsylvania, this wonderful thread I found from Peruvian Bull. It really is something to think about. And a few other things. We have more than enough stuff to call in on. So 914-200-0269. We got 9 minutes left. In the meantime, listen to a little bit of this. Let me get this straight, Peruvian Bull says. The killer is Luigi Mangione, a Ivy League grad with degrees in computer science, avid reader, active contributor on GitHub, has a 130 plus IQ, but he takes off his mask at a Starbucks to flirt with an employee. Listen. Very powerful thing. Then an hour later, he goes and calmly kills the CEO of a major healthcare company, rides away on a bike. A week later, he goes to a local McDonald's where he brings the murder weapon, the fake ID he used to check into a hotel, and a written manifesto on how horrible the American healthcare system is. He somehow gets identified by the cashier after he sits down. He works on his laptop until police come inside the McDonald's, sitting there with a ghost gun and suppressor that he made himself. Gotcha. I know. It sounds stupid. Now, could it all just be attributed to a mental break? Schizophrenia? I saw somebody, suggesting that his background is actually quite rich, and that, asking the question, wouldn't it have been, in many ways, very ironic if this Luigi guy, his family is actually more wealthy than the guy he went out and killed. But what happened? We'll do the more of that tomorrow. Let's take a call. 541, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Frank. This is Sandy from Tucson.
Hey, Sandy from Tucson.
I just wanted to tell you, Frank, that I'm 71 years old. I've been married for 51 years. I have the greatest son ever, and we have lived next door to each other in Arizona. And he was the drummer of Yob for 20 years. And what I wanted to say to you is that I have one compliment for you, and it will be the greatest compliment that I am personally able to give. And that is that I wish you were my son, Frank.
Oh, geez, Louise. Well, I mean, that is a very, very high compliment. And
I can't even hire one.
That's incredible. Well, that means I would have another brother then.
Yeah.
Wow.
You do.
And he'd be you'd have two drumming sons.
Yes.
Well, how the hell?
Yes. And I'm telling you, I wish that you were my son, and that's the greatest compliment that I can give.
It is a very high compliment, and I gotta say, it is. It actually makes me speechless. And you got something else there when you're describing your life over there in Arizona. There's nothing better than living in that close proximity with people. I'm sure you guys have a lot of fun being next door, and there's a lot of security there, knowing that you're that everybody's close together, and it's wonderful. I have that with my mom too.
Well, you got another mom, Frank, and if you ever need a place to stay or a place you want to visit, you got it.
Oh, the only place I'm going if I go to Arizona is your house. That's it.
It's a deal, Frank, and I'm not lying. I'm a real person, and I mean it.
No.
And I just want to say, too, that I love the bubble candles from the 50s or 60s that Dr. Robin was behind.
Yes.
My older sister used to have those, and they were always on her tree, and they were a little bit smaller, but they're absolutely amazing, Frank, and so are you. And I agree literally with everything that you have to say. And I am absolutely amazed that a person your age is so grounded and solid and just, I love you, Frank, and so does my husband. And we go to bed early, and that's why I never call you, because I never catch you live. We go to bed and we watch, we just go straight to Frank, and it's like, wow, and we love you. I swear to God, you are amazing. You're smart. You're brilliant.
Okay. All right. You're gonna give me I'm gonna slip into diabetic coma over here. That you're
the best father and husband too.
I appreciate. You know what? You and your husband probably have a lot of fun. You guys seem like a fun couple. I hear him chuckling in the background. This is
cracking up at what I got through.
No.
It's amazing to me.
Well, this is a great call, and I promise you, if I go out to Arizona, I'm going to look you up, and we'll have I don't know what the hell, we'll have a cup of coffee or something like that.
Oh my God, we'll have a drink and we'll take you to some beautiful places.
Great, I like it. Thank you. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I love you, Frank. Thank you for all you do.
All right, see you later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. Hope I hear from her again. That was nice. I'm going to be 40 in April, though. So, I mean, if you're 70, 71, my mom is pretty much my mom's age. So, but I'd hope most people could be grounded by 40. I didn't know if I would be grounded by 40. Am I grounded? Maybe. It doesn't feel that way sometimes. But that was a nice call. Let's see here. 8:58. There's just no time. That was the one call that came through. How do you like that? Let's do one more. 9:03, you're on the air. You're the last one of the night. Go ahead.
9:03. That must be me.
That's
right?
you. That's you.
Hey, listen, Rambling Randy here. It's been about a year or so since I called in.
Hey, Randy.
Listen, if you would go over to YouTube, this is for something that the lady was just talking about currency and all that business.
Yeah.
Mike Maloney did a series of about 8 videos. It's called Hidden Secrets of Money. I mean, it will show you in cartoon form exactly what's happening. And I've been chasing this. Believe it or not, I'm 71 years old.
Well, there you
Can't
go.
believe I lived it. Yeah. So I was back in the day when there was a fellow by the name of Eustace Mullins. Eustace would go to the federal courthouse every day, and he's a lawyer, and he would attempt to sue the Federal Reserve. And he was very well known, and then along came Creature of Jekyll Island, and we have, what's his name? I met him, too, up in Colorado. The guy that wrote the book, Creature of Jekyll Island.
Oh, G. Edward Griffin.
Yeah, I met him. Wonderful fellow up there at Red Pill Expo he had in Colorado one time. But anyway, I want to let you know about that. Go over and watch that Mike Maloney, Hidden Secrets of Money, and it will blow you away. And it's been right in front of us all this time. And being this age, I realized what happens is it goes through about 60 or 70 years and it cycles. Those people die off, and really what's happening has not been passed on. The answer to this is right in front of us. And literally, I wrote a book called Reverse Fractional Banking, A Fair Exchange of Value back in 2014. And we have the ability to take the fiat currency, and I'll get in touch with you and Mel K and Sean over at SUT and a few others. And I'm going to build a platform just like Badlands has got, Badlands Media.
Mm-hmm.
They have all those people on there, and I want to offer to some of these people like yourself to be the tutors of this little thing called the University of Paul Revere. And we're going to teach people by watching y'all. And the theme of this is that a fair exchange of value is what the whole world needs to come to. You need to change everything, and everything that you do is analog. There isn't anything in the world that's quantum or all this other horse shit. It's all analog. It's one person to another. You have to give consent. That's analog.
Gotcha. Well, okay.
Analog, all these,
Oh, so you want okay. Right. Well, listen, we're about to wrap up, Randy, and you're starting to ramble a little bit. But I understand what you're talking about. As far as I see your very lofty goals, wanting to really tack yourself onto what I had opened up with the Robin tonight. You know, where does the education aspect come in setting up the next couple of generations to hopefully go in a different direction than what we are currently trying to fight our way out of onto a different track. So
I'll be in touch with you, Frank.
Send
and
me,
I want to sit down.
Well, listen, whatever you've already done, please, by all means, feel free to send me a link in an email and send me a link of the YouTube video. I think that's quite frankly podcast at gmail.com. I think that cartoon that you had mentioned, I'm pretty sure I had seen that somewhere in the past. It might have been many years, but I think I know the one you're talking about. But send it over, because at the very least we can put it into the after hours programming, which is what we have coming up now on quitefrankly.tv. As soon as I end right now, Kristen Welker interviews Donald Trump. I had a few media items tonight that I couldn't play. We'll do all those tomorrow, though. Valuetainment, uncovering shocking waste and how to eliminate taxes. Judge Napolitano with Scott Ritter, how Syria fell. That's a good one. Those two together, really fun. Judge Napolitano with Colonel McGregor is always good too. Jeremy Ryan Slate, our good buddy Jeremy Ryan Slate, he was just on with our good buddy Jay Dyer. They did a show together on how Byzantine secret societies control 2024. I think that Jay and I did a little bit of that. Somehow that came up in conversation in 2023 at some point. I forgot what the hell it is. And then, of course, we have an Art Bell kicker. Art Bell interviews Grant Cameron. But that's what we have for you tonight. That all begins right now on quitefrankly.tv. Get over there. You can also go into the replays, and you can click on It's a Wonderful Life, and you can watch what we streamed on Saturday night from Harrison, New York. That was really great going live with a very crude setup, but I would like to do more things like that on the road. I also got my Spotify Wrapped as a creator. And we had some good growth on Spotify this year. Really great. Really fantastic. I want to go through that the last week in December when we do all of our retrospectives and things like that. Actually saw some really good growth in age demographic. 18 to 24 is now 2% of the audience. Then 25 to 34 is 15. 35 to 44 is 37%. So half of the audience is younger than 44 years old now. That's huge. Although I love my 71-year-olds. I really do. Love you a lot. And my 90-year-old, Wayne Smaldridge. Wayne in South Carolina. Do you know that Wayne in the chat room is 90 years old? He doesn't call me up that much anymore, but he's always in the chat, always emailing with me. He's a music director at his church. 90 in that chat room. You'd think he's probably, I don't know, a 65-year-old stud, right? No. 90. Very blessed. We're all very blessed to have such a nice crowd here. All types of perspective. All types of jokes to be slung. Okay, Shan Yu says, what a lovely, intelligent guest Dr. Robin was. Thanks, Frank. Always learning something watching your show. Gosh, I really want that brown wheelchair Santa. We will give it away on Friday night. It's Friday the 13th. Right? Yeah, it's Friday the 13th this Friday. The Friday night, black wheelchair Santa will go, and I'll put a coin in his lap and all that other stuff, and we'll get something out there. I have some other decorations in here that I got to do, but that's all. I'll keep talking. All right, guys. Until tomorrow night, 7:00, we'll have a lot of leftovers from tonight, and much of it is going to be really great call-in topics. So it should be decent enough time for me writing. Have a great, great evening. And I will talk to you soon. QuiteFrankly.tv, starting right after this.
I'll catch you on the flip side.